if my telling you we would be on here at 4:15 made you run to somewhere, don't worry. We have some time to talk to you. But welcome to this week's Vets I Recommend. I'm super excited to talk to you a little bit before I introduce our next guest about something that I feel very passionate about. And I know the name of the show is Vets I Recommend, but I've often felt that there's a lot of people in the world that are healers. And, before medical school ever existed, we had people who were healing people and going through and had this ability to just understand a pet's body and their own bodies and human bodies. And they may not be doctors, but they're healers. And so I want to introduce to you one of my favorite, you are famous. She's famous in my world. And I hope she's going to soon be famous in your world, because I want to introduce you to Rita Hogan. Hi, how are you? Good.
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh my gosh. Rita, you are just such a, I don't know that I have the words to express how much positive energy you bring into the world. I met you, as you know, in Chicago, and I did a podcast with you. We did it on lipomas. I don't know if you remember, it's been several years, but yeah, we spoke about lipomas and the liver, and it was so eye-opening to me as an ex-vet tech who was told for years and years and years, oh, those are just fatty cysts that retrievers and labs and doodles get. And I learned so much from you, and you're dead on, by the way. I started having people do what you were saying, and we noticed a little bit of a changes in them, but it's hard to get people to stick to the plan, right? You got to stick to it to get it to work. But before we get into questions, hopefully we'll have some people not so shy that'll give us some questions. I told you before we started the show, I just love your story. I do. I think stories are the best way to teach and where we come from. And so just tell us a little bit about how you got it. So Rita's a herbalist. If you don't know, she's a fabulous herbalist, but tell us how you got started.
Well, I've been doing a clinical practice for about 20 years. It started out super small with my own clients. I used to board dogs, kennel-free boarding, and I used to start with my own clients, and then it kind of built from there. But my father would not call himself an herbalist. He was a gardener, and we had a farm with ponies and pigs and chickens and cows. And I was very small girl, and we used to go to the garden together, and I'd say, Daddy, what's this? I'd said it nonstop. He had so much patience with me, because I'd say to every plant, can I pick it? Is it a weed? And can I pick it? And I would say it to him nonstop. But what was cool about my father is he did know about plants, and he would send me out into the field and say, get the little red tipped, blah, 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 in the left corner of the field. It's about yay high, gather a few of those and bring them to me. And he would use plants on our horses and we had ponies and Shetland ponies and chickens and cows and pigs. And he knew what to feed them. He did a lot of fresh herb feeding. So I got a little taste of what plants could do at that time. I didn't know really what was going on. We did a lot of gardening together. And then my grandmother, who, I met when she was quite elderly, but my grandmother she would not call herself an herbalist either, but she raised 16 children in the Great Depression. The only doctor she ever had was a midwife, which would not be a doctor. They could not afford to go to the doctor. And my mom has this lovely story about, my mother's going to be 92 in December. And she tells me this just sweet story of my grandmom going into the forest with her big basket, and the kids would have to watch the kids basically. And she'd appear later, 3-4 hours later, with a big basket of just tons of stuff, mushrooms and everything. And so, it's definitely in my blood.
Yeah.
I studied Ayurveda and also Sanskrit in college in the University of Minnesota, and I studied some Ayurvedic medicine, and I tried that on. It just didn't really I love Ayurveda, but it didn't resonate with me. And then So when I was 29, 30, I went back to Western herbalism, and which is not to be mistaken for Western medicine. But I went back to, to the plants, to the herbs that I knew. Um, and that's it. That was it. I was hook, line, and sinker. It felt so comfortable and just so recognized in my body. Just really recognized it. Feel very close to it. I started seeking out teachers and mentors. I'm self-taught. I did not go to school for herbalism. I did go to a school here in Olympia to when I moved to basically get really used to like the different plants that were in the Pacific Northwest. I had a lovely teacher named Sean Croak, who I purchased medicine from from him right now. But yeah, I just absolutely love plant medicine and plant intelligence.
It's I think in a lot of ways you're so fortunate to have never not known that, because for the rest of us, like me, I grew up, with my parents, of course, didn't know that Southern California, we didn't have farms or land or anything, and everything was just about Western medicine, and so you have to go back and learn it. But I
Yeah.
just wish I grew up like that, because when you see, grandmother or your father heal a horse, right? Horses don't have a
Yeah.
placebo effect. A horse can't go, oh, well, they gave me that new herb, so now I'm going to feel like I'm good. And that's
Oh,
what's
yeah,
so great
absolutely.
about watching an animal heal, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Do you?
it it's fascinating to me. I mean, animals are so more like horses in general. Horses are vegans, and so they're very in tune to plant medicine, which I love. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Do you remember the first time you were able to heal an animal on your own?
Yeah, definitely. I We had a pug rescue, and um, we rescued 332 pugs like in 6 years, which is a lot of pugs, and
That's a lot of. How many?
332.
Oh my God, that is a lot. Oh,
We successfully rehomed 332 pugs, but they really gave me a really good foundation in herbal medicine. We and the power of food, the power of food. They taught me the power of food. But my own journey with dogs and herbs, it all started when I got a little pug named Finbar, and we called him Finbar the Irish Pug, and he was at the vet. We were at the vet with him like every other month. He constantly got pneumonia, and this is the first 3 years of his life. He constantly got pneumonia all the time. We couldn't figure out what was going on. I never put it together. I trusted dog food. Like I just didn't put that together, right? And,
right.
and one day I turned over his Purina with yogurt bag. Okay, and this is like 23 years ago. I turned over his bag and I was like, what? That's crazy. And my first dog was a Rottweiler, and I actually fed Sojos, which is Sojos is not the Sojos it is today. It was this little brown paper bag that you mixed with water and meat, right? But I just assumed that all dog foods were whole ingredient dog foods. I didn't look at it, and
Yeah.
I was super busy, And then I looked at his bag, Finbar's bag, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like I looked it up, and I was like. And we changed his food. And at that time, we went from like Purina to, I think, wellness. And even with that change, we saw a huge difference in him. And then we went from wellness to Honest Kitchen. Um, and that's where we really saw a profound difference for him. Okay. And then he went from Honest Kitchen to a dehydrated raw. And then we flipped freeze dried. And then we flipped from raw, traditional raw to freeze dried. And he passed away really close to his 18th birthday.
Oh, and he was a Rottie, a
No,
Rottweiler.
this was Finbar the pug.
Oh, the pug, the pug.
Yeah. And the Roddy lived until she was about 14. I didn't have her whole life. That's a long story, but she needed someone with more of a, she just needed someone that wasn't me because she was aggressive. And
Oh.
and it was a lot to take in. But she had a lovely owner and a lovely life. She had a great life on a paintball farm, and she was
Oh my
so,
gosh.
yeah,
I
she was,
bet. I bet.
and she had a great life. But Finbar, he was, it was night and day, and that's when I started noticing how food can shape the body. And he had just kind of, at 2, he had this kind of like little lumpy body, on the Purina 1. And when we changed him to wellness, all those lumps went away. And then when we changed him to Honest Kitchen, he stopped shedding. And and I was just like, oh my God. And this was in a period of a year. So it
Wow.
wasn't that long that we made
Yeah.
this baby step. I'm like, there's got to be something better than this. And then, I tried to find the Sojos, and I didn't find it at the time. We didn't even, when we first started out, we didn't even have internet.
Yeah.
So I found a woman in Nashville, and she helped me with food, and it was fantastic. I mean, and then I was like, okay, food is so important. And that was just food, no herbs. And then once I figured that out, I started a Music City Pug Rescue, and then I hooked up with this behaviorist. And what's crazy is we used to require people to sign a contract that they would feed either fresh food, home cooked, raw, freeze dried, dehydrated, or we had a list of like 10 kibbles that were acceptable when they first started like working on their pugs.
Good for
Um,
you.
yeah, and we gave them a 2-hour class on holistic health and healing, and positive training, and that was it. We saw such a difference. And then I started working herbs, and we rescued 332 pugs, and I gave herbal medicine to almost all of them.
Oh my gosh. It's so nice to hear that you had them sign that contract, because when you see so much illness and sickness, it is hard. I see it every day come in, and people were shocked when I stopped selling kibble. I said, I can't sell kibble anymore. I'm sorry. And at first I felt really bad about it, because I know it's a cost thing for a lot of people, but I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't watch those dogs, the owners, walk out with that bag of food that I sold them. And then the dog would come in, a couple weeks later, and I would see him and I would feel guilty, because he's scratching in his ears. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just don't want to be any part of that. And I know that they can go get it somewhere else, but I just didn't want to be the one that did it. I asked you if you remembered your first dog, because I feel like all healers really remember that first time, because it's hard, I would imagine, in our world, when we're not doctors and we don't have, all of the support behind doing something like this. Even maybe not so much with you, with me, it used to get in my head, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? But then when you first witness it for yourself, yeah, it's just so amazing, right? Like, it's just such a beautiful feeling.
Yeah, it is amazing. And we live in a very, if you don't have a PhD or a certificate of doctrine of medicine, then you don't have anything valid to say.
Right.
Well, with herbalism, there is a lot of valid things to say. And I get a lot of the, can I see some evidence-based herbal information about why this herb works? And the thing is that what people need to remember is that there's always a money stream. And so a lot of herbs get standardized, and that's not the herb that I deal with. That's an herb that's taken to a lab, and many, 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 many plants are involved, that where it can standardize to a certain amount of medicine that can be studied. And unless someone can change that medicine or really focus on one constituent that works really well, then they can standardize it and sell it. They're really not interested in studying herbs. Herbs are hard because, I can plant a crop of echinacea and it can have a certain level of constituents, but it may not be the same level of constituents for the next crop. So that's really hard to base clinical information on. And another aspect of that, which I think people really need to understand, is that herbalism isn't evidence-based. Researched herbs have to be standardized. Um, I think that what is herbalism was our first medicine, and it was passed down from person to person. And this is how I learned the bulk of what I know, information being taught to me out in the field with the plants, understanding what's going on, physically being with the plants in nature and making medicine with them, tasting them, using them with myself, my family, my clients. And in many clinical studies, they're going to be again using single constituents of a plant or a few constituents. For example, curcumin instead of turmeric, silymarin instead of milk thistle, berberine instead of like Oregon grape or barberry. So the list kind of goes on, and these substances, when they're isolated, can cause side effects because they don't have all those other constituents of that non-toxic plant to keep it in check. And science really wants consistent, measurable constituents. They have to minimize variables. They have to deal with single crop plants because they can't deal with single crop plants because that can't give them what they need. So they create standardized extracts in a lab setting, and that's not herbalism. That's science.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. I've always thought this was neat, interesting. If somebody's taking cholesterol medication, my mom takes it. And then I'm reading the side effects and what to do and what not to do for her. And it says on there for her not to eat grapefruit because grapefruit reduces cholesterol. And I'm like, okay, so you guys recognize enough to put it on this label that she shouldn't eat grapefruit because it also reduces cholesterol, but you're not willing to just tell her to eat some grapefruit and not do the medication. It's just weird to me. And then, as most people know, isn't that crazy? Like,
well, the thing with that is that, cholesterol, triglycerides, probably I'm not sure about the percentages, but I know that over 98% of all of those situations are lifestyle, diet. There are some hereditary high cholesterol patients for sure, but most of it is diet and lifestyle and stress. So, they're not dealing with the root issue. And I am totally pro science. I love reading scientific journals. I love looking at the science. I love it when I see science catching up with herbalism, and people snicker at me about that. But I'm like, knew that a long time ago. Like herbalism has been dealing with that forever. I'm glad science is starting to figure that out. But what they're doing is I think this is the best way to put it. So when you try to adapt herbalism to the scientific methodology, right? It's kind of like learning Spanish or a foreign language, right? You cannot translate English to Spanish word for word. You're never going to learn the language. Never, right? Never. It's not the same. So you have to adapt it and look at it from the Spanish, from like Spanish culture, because the language is the culture. Okay. And it's the same that goes with the language of plants. They don't speak scientific clinical language because they need that standardization. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just, and I love the research of the constituents. Absolutely. I've learned so much, but so much is lost in that translation.
Well, it's such a good analogy to use that, because if you immerse yourself into the Spanish culture and live in it and be it and speak it and know the slang and the this and the that and all of the stuff that goes with it, that's when you're really in it. You can't just grab a book and then try to get it without listening, hearing, right? That's the point you're trying to make, is that
like if you're saying I'm traveling home from work, right? And you try to translate the I'm traveling home from work, right? You're not going to find words that equal I'm traveling home from. That's not how it works.
Right.
the Spanish language. And so you'll be like, but I don't, where's the, I don't, where's the I'm? Well, I don't understand. And that's the easiest way that I can explain it. So much is lost in translation. And so I think when the two come together, when science and anecdotal medicine come together, like I was explaining to someone on a Zoom yesterday, you know, it's really simple for me to know, like, okay, just this is a perfect example. Okay. Yesterday, I had a woman who was baling hay, was having an asthma attack from
Sorry, my husband just got home from work.
That's fine. Was having an attack from baling hay, probably inhalation irritant, right? Took the inhaler. Another.
Okay, he's like 13 years old, and every time my husband comes home, this is his hello.
He'll stop. Well, that's what dogs do. Wait to chime in. So, you know, took 2 inhalers, was still having a lot of congestion, felt real, you know, like someone was standing on her chest. I got some New England Aster. I gave her 2 droppers full. I tried a little bit first to see what the reaction was. Then we gave her 2 droppers full. She could totally breathe again. Nothing's wrong this morning. She took it last night. She took it this morning. All good. I don't need a scientific study to tell me that New England Aster dilates the lungs. It's one of the things I've learned in herbalism, right? Through practice, through people, through dogs and animals, people using these medicines with our animals and ourselves. That's where you learn, like, these are the properties of these herbs. I mean, the good thing is when you get immersed in herbalism, there's some amazing herbalists that have been herbalists for, like, you know, between 40 and 50 years. Wow. And those are my teachers. And there's lots of people practicing medical herbalism too, which is more on the science-based side. So there's a big world out there. I just think they need to come together instead of saying, you know, this one's better and this one's better.
Agreed. I know I did a podcast with Dr. Bakarin, and he talked about how in homeopathy, part of the problem is that if you go to like Whole Foods, for example, and they have some homeopathy treatments there, but those aren't real. They're not. And so then people take them not knowing what they're doing, and then they don't work. And then they say, oh, homeopathy and, you know, herbalism, all that kind of stuff is because it's not done correctly. He says that homeopathy should not have to be continually given for the rest of your life. And that's the problem with when you go out and buy a pre-made sitting on the shelves for years and God knows what's in it. He says, they all say, take this, you know, 3 times a day forever. And so it's something that's such a deeper understanding, and it requires somebody who didn't just pick up a book. Because I see that a lot. I see that in the animal world a lot. I see it mostly in training. Like people will say, well, I read so-and-so's book and now I'm going to train dogs. And I'm like, it's not everything I know and have learned. It's from my own desire to put my hands on an animal and see what's going on, right? It's not just, oh, I picked up a book, I'm around it. But I love the story. Because I know that's what it's in your soul. It's just something that you're a part of. From a little girl saying, can I pick that? Can I pick that? Can I pick that? That's just natural curiosity. And it shines in all of the work and the products and the things that you do. And I'm just so excited. So before we go too far, I want to make sure anybody who's listening, Rita is going to be one of our speakers at the event we're having on October 1st called Redefining Health. What did you think? So I'm going to talk to Rita a little bit about this event we're doing. What did you think about and I'm putting you on the spot, so don't feel bad, say whatever you want. But what did you think about the name when we called it Redefining Health?
I think it's a good name. I mean, because we do need to redefine health. Again, I was talking to someone today on a podcast about how unacceptable it is that dogs are being labeled geriatric at 8 years old. It's unacceptable that 1 in 2 dogs will die of cancer. It's unacceptable that 1 in 2 people will die. 1 in 4 people will die of cancer. It is unacceptable. We need to redefine what health actually is and what it looks like. even though we can't keep it in stasis, where you got your dog to a really good point, you're like, stay there, stay there.
Stay.
If it ebbs and flows, but we want to get to the root of the issue. We want to realize, what's going on. What do we need to do? What do we need to focus on? What are the differences? This is one thing that I was really kind of like, okay, here's the answer lies in this. In 1970, there was hardly ever animals didn't go to the vet hardly at
No.
all, right? They didn't go, and they weren't sick. They lived for a really long time. Like I shared with you, my dog lived until it was like 25. So
Yeah.
like they just didn't get that sick. What has happened between 1970 and 2022 to humans and dogs? And it really started ramping up around 2000 to 2001. That's when the cancer cases started trickling in. And what do humans and dogs have in common? That's where the answer lies. Like, what do they have in common? Poor nutrition, over vaccination, not getting any fresh air, staying inside too much, right? There's so many facets that we can look at, but nutrition is one of the biggest things. And I don't know if you know about epigenetics, but it's basically how nutrition can turn on and turn off genetic expression. And I really think that science will catch up with herbalism. And yes, I can say that, that science will catch up with herbalism, because what I think happens with herbs, because they are so intelligent, that herbs go into the body, and how do they heal? I can't really tell you that, right? I can't. But they do. And I do really feel in my heart of hearts that they are able to turn on and turn off genetic expression when you get down to the science of it, right? For me, it heals the body. Your life is full of vitality again, or your dog's life is full of vitality again. But the science may find out, okay, these herbs are capable of turning off these genes. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's fascinating. And we need to redefine health. We need to redefine what that means, because it certainly doesn't mean that a dog who's 8 that's grayed in the face because they've been on such poor nutrition and their cells are not getting fed is health, because it's not.
That's why, when we were trying to figure out what to name it, and the big thing and why it was so important to bring these particular speakers together, because we're covering all of we're not just going to be talking about nutrition. We're going to be talking about overall wellness and what that means. And I decided to call it Redefining Health for exactly what you talked about, is the age. I get time and time again, I see probably 60 dogs a day being told that their dog lived maybe to be 15, and they think, but I've known that dog his whole life. I've known that he has had chronic ear infections, he's had skin problems, he's had diabetes maybe, and they think, oh, if he lives to be 15, 18 years old, then that's health. And then, like you're saying that a dog is geriatric at 8, I hear that too. I'm like, we need to redefine what health is, because watching these dogs suffer until they're 18, 19, 20 years old is awful. And it causes so much stress. And so that's why I brought these particular speakers together, so that we can cover all of the ways to redefine our pet's health. And so you're just fitting right into this little niche that we need, talking about, exactly what you're talking about, these genes that get turned on and turned off. It's why you can have 2 dogs come from the same family, live in the same house, eat the same food, and only one has maybe some of these problems because the gene got turned on. And can you turn it off? And so I hope science catches up to herbalism so bad. I am with you. I will support it 100%.
They really are. Like Dr. Amy Yasko is doing amazing research on epigenetics, and they really are discovering that genes can be turned on and turned off.
Yeah. So the event, for those of you who don't know, we are going to be speaking in Newport Beach, California on October 1st, 2022. It's sneaking up on us. I can't even believe that it is already here. I'm like, wow, we are just right around the corner. seems like I've actually been planning this for quite a few years. It's been sitting in the back of my head, and I just really wanted to do it. But now it's here. It's like right around the corner. We're already getting our samples for our sample bags to stuff them, and all sorts of stuff is happening. But give us a little taste of what you're going to be talking about.
So I'm going to be talking about allergies in pets, in dogs, and well, I'll mention kitties. I'm definitely a canine herbalist, but I do know a lot about cats, and I try to learn so much more every day. But they are different species. Most people don't.
Yeah.
They know that, but they don't recognize it.
Right.
But I'm going to be talking about like what you can do to get your dog to stop having allergies, and the surprising reason that they're not allergies at all. They're definitely not allergies, and they're not what we think they are. And the origin of allergies, and how to get those allergies to not come back, and that your dog doesn't have them anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to give it all away, but
yeah, don't give it all away. But I'm so excited because I just had every day. I should just say every day. I just had a client the other day. Oh, they gave him they gave the dog Cyta Point because he has allergies. And I said, did they run an allergy test? Did they suggest possibly finding out if there's actual allergies and maybe removing the allergen? No, of course not. No, we just went home with a bunch of medications. And so I think, just like you, a lot of these allergies aren't even allergies. And oh gosh, it's so frustrating. I love this topic because it is almost every dog over the age of 2 now that comes to me is suffering from some form of allergy. And it just drives me crazy. I had a dog about a year and a half ago, and he had such severe allergies that he was running around with a cone on his head. And you couldn't take that cone off for 2 seconds. If you did, he would rip his foot off. It was that bad. And we ended up finding out it wasn't allergies at all. He had little foot mites in his feet. And it was so bad that he literally would rip his foot off. He would bleed if he got that cone off. And it wasn't even allergies. So we got rid of the foot mites and the dog's cone free. But vets go straight to that allergy thing, right? It's allergies, it's allergies, it's allergies. So this is going to be such a great topic, and I think so many people are going to just get so much value out of it. Why do you think, like people have asked me, well, why are you guys doing this? So with COVID, we've all kind of been trapped in our homes for so long, and we finally decided to come out, and we're going to do this live event. The difference between doing these on Zoom, I know you've done both, and then doing a live event, what do you think the difference is that people will get out of it?
Well, I mean, live events are so awesome because you get to meet, you get to meet everyone. You get to get your questions answered. You get to feel part of it, right? And there's a difference in live learning than just listening to someone like we're talking right now. There's a lot of difference. And I think there's definitely a different way that we cognitively take information in when we're learning live. And of course, that's not everyone, right? But the majority of us really do thrive in a live situation where we can watch a person's talk, we can be with that person, we can ask the questions we want to ask, and we can feel, I don't want to get sappy, but a lot of times we feel like we're alone in these situations. And especially the last 3 years, I mean, it's been me, myself, and my mirror. I mean, so many times, and my family, it's like, oh my God, it's given us a time to get closer to our families, but I miss seeing people.
I know.
And a lot of people do feel like they're alone in this situation with their animals. And it's really frustrating because it's not just the dog. It's not just the animal. It's the animal and the person. It's the animal and the family. I mean, when an animal is suffering, the family, is involved. And just like when a person is suffering, the animals are upset. They understand sickness for sure. And
Absolutely.
So I just think having a live event is just going to be awesome. I can't wait. It's
I
so.
am so excited. Yeah, it's so. I remember when I went to Chicago, that was my first experience. I mean, I've been to Super Zoo a million times since I was really young. I've been to so many events, but the one in Chicago was just our people. And so it was just people interested in learning, people interested in teaching. And I remember leaving there saying, I feel like I left a meeting. Like I went to a place where I wasn't being judged. I could learn, I could educate, I could be a part of something that was actually working and changing lives. And I never would have got that on a Zoom meeting. I never would have been able to. So I know I can never do these without having that energy. You can't create the same energy through the camera as you can in a room where everybody's chemistry and is getting together, and you just can't create it. So so excited. The having the six of you guys come out and speak, and then we have I don't even know if you know, for the listeners, if you haven't seen, we have we knew it was a lot of information that's going to be coming, and it's going to be intense. And so we thought, what are we going to do to break up the learning part of it, because that can be a lot on your brain. And so our MC is actually a stand-up comedian, and so he's going to help break up so that we have some humor, and so it's just going to be great. So um
And
so
there's also a huge difference between listening to someone that's in front of you and listening to someone in the video. Like, so I'm sitting here in my dining room, right?
yeah,
So hot. My office is way too hot right now. I'm sitting here and talking to you, but when I do something live, I'm, I'm much more interactive and animated, and
absolutely.
you go home feeling so empowered,
So
you know.
empowered. That's the word. That is the word. You actually leave there. A lot of times if you go on Zoom, you turn off the computer and then you just kind of go back to your life. It's a lot harder. You're so right. That empowerment, that feeling, that comes from that energy that's in that room. I know back when I used to be on the speech and debate team in college, and it was competitive. So you would start out in a room with just you and maybe the judge, and then the other speakers, and then each time you would move up, and then eventually you'd be in a big audience and speaking. My speeches were far better. I don't know how I ever made it to a final round, because the first rounds were too hard when it's just one-on-one and the energy's not there. And then my coaches would always say, God, when you get into a final round, it's different. It's just different. And I'm excited. I hope we're going to be able to do these every year, maybe twice a year, because it's just valuable information. And new pet owners are coming in. I get a lot of people coming in that are never had a pet in their life. So unfortunately, it's not something I think that we can teach and then it can stop. Like it's unfortunately never going to get to that point, don't you think? Like we have to keep going.
Oh no, I have
Yeah.
so much I want to share with the world. It's unreal. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. It's going to be the greatest. You guys, when you come listen to Rita speak, you're going to be blown away, blown away. What are you excited? Do you know about all the other speakers? Are you excited about anything as far as you don't probably know their topics yet, but I don't know if there's something you know about, if you're excited about seeing yourself.
oh, I'm totally excited about all the speakers. I love listening to Julianne talk. She's so knowledgeable. Billy, I'm excited to hear Billy talk. Dr. Judy. Who else is? There's a person that I,
Dr. Barry Sands.
Dr.
I
Barry
think,
Sands.
yeah, you haven't met her.
No.
Oh, I think the two of you are going to be you guys are going to be, she's actually out of San Diego, and you're going to just love the two. I know you two are going to hit it off. She's amazing. And your energy is very similar. But she's great. Yeah. It's just an overall covering of everything. So it's going to be fun. And lots of prizes and all sorts of stuff. But, so let's talk a little bit more about herbalism. I know this is probably hard, but is there a favorite herb? Like, what is your favorite herb?
Oh, you mean for myself?
Just in general, like, I don't know, what's your,
I would say, um, I I love yarrow. Uh,
Yarrow. I
yeah,
don't even.
yarrow is one of my favorite herbs, but for dogs, I really love skullcap. Um, because the nervous system needs so much support, and it really helps with like it like vaccine reactions with from the rabies vaccine. I love skullcap, nettle seed. See, I can't just say one, but nettle seed.
I,
Um, Nettle seed is really important for kidney health, in my opinion, for dogs that are really having a hard time with their kidneys. But yeah, but if I had to pick one herb, if I was stranded on a desert island and I had to pick one herb, I'd pick yarrow.
yarrow. What is that? What is it? I don't even know what yarrow is. Is that
It's a little white plant. Its Latin name is Achillea. It it really helps with wounds. It helps us, it's a balancer. So when you take it into your body, it kind of balances things out. Um, it's just one of my favorites. But like for dogs, I really love skullcap. I really love calendula and cleavers and nettle. Those are some of my favorites.
and you have a book coming out?
I do.
Tell us about
It
it.
won't be coming out until next year, late next year, because
Yeah.
traditional publishing takes a really long time. But it's going to be a game changer. It's a dog herbal, um, and it's filling the hole of what do I do, when do I stop, how much do I give, what herbs do I choose. It goes over energetics. It goes over holistic herbalism. It goes over standardized herbs versus whole plant herbs. Um, it really hits like so many bases. It goes over a ton of common canine conditions and different protocols based on a dog's energetics. It really helps you see your dog as an individual and answers all those questions that people just don't understand how to use herbs because they're trying to use herbs pharmaceutically in because we have that pharmaceutical mindset where
Mindset. Yeah.
we've been conditioned of it. So I mean it's conditioned. So kind of helping you understand herbalism as its own set of methodology and how to use it at home, what to use it for. And I'm going to go over just a bunch of conditions, including, vaccine reactions and antibiotic recovery, which is a huge thing to pay attention to because there's a huge correlation scientifically. Uh, Definitely, they've proven that there's a huge correlation between antibiotic use and cancer. And I have to tell you, in my practice, very few dogs have I ever come across that have not had at least 1 to 2 rounds of antibiotics.
All of them. I know. I've never seen a dog that hasn't been on antibiotics. And
Um,
people think, oh, well, he was given that as a puppy. And I'm like, okay. And he's never had his gut balanced his whole life. It just keeps getting worse.
yeah,
And you're not feeding him the food to balance that gut out. So yeah. And now vets just throw a probiotic at him, but that, doesn't really always work.
very
So,
few vets will throw a probiotic.
huh?
But I said very few vets will throw a probiotic. A
Yeah.
holistic vet, I mean, they'll throw a Purina probiotic at them.
That's what I mean. They're throwing probiotics at him because they've heard, but they're still not understanding. They're still
No.
not totally understanding. It's just like veterinarians that say that they're holistic, but they're not really understanding what that term means. And then therefore don't use it, is how I feel about it. Don't call yourself a holistic veterinarian if you can't understand what the whole part of it is. It doesn't, it's making the situation worse, but
Well, I mean,
uh,
I think that vets are doing the best job they can. I really
yeah,
do.
agreed.
You don't have knowledge, you can't speak to it,
Right.
and um if you a lot of vets don't have the time to learn it. They're not taught it in school. The required continuing education doesn't revolve around herbalism. But I think that as we go on this trajectory and as people realize that what they're doing is not working, that we're going to see a much more integrative approach in the next 10 years. And that's what we really need. We need an integrative approach. We need, vets save lives. Emergency medicine is amazing. The ability to do surgery is fantastic. It's the missing is individual healing, treating people as an individual. Hippocrates said it's better to know the disease than the person than the disease. And that's what we got to get back to. We got to get back to taking the time to understand and asking, what does your dog get exercise? What is your dog eating? And we have to get back to understanding that food is the foundation for everything. And I
Yeah.
think things are starting to change because dog owners are getting really frustrated. They're
Yeah.
understanding, this is not working. So
Yeah. And it's expensive, and then a lot of the dogs are ending up at the animal shelters because people can't afford the medical care, let alone getting into medical to get an appointment with a veterinarian is impossible. So do you have a name for your book yet?
well, I wanted to name it Dogs Are Individuals, but publishing isn't happy about that name. So so it's probably going to be called The Herbal Dog.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
um, publishing is all about selling books,
Yeah.
which I understand, you know, um, and it needs to be very clear what it is. So it's probably going to be called The Herbal Dog. I'm calling it The Herbal Dog right now until my publishers decide to call it something else. But right now it's called The Herbal Dog. I think that's probably what the name will be.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about my tagline yet, but I'm super excited about it because it's going to be unlike any other herbal book on that has ever been written for
See,
dogs. For dogs.
for
For dogs.
dogs, for dogs. It's okay. They are different. People, you're right. People don't realize they are very different animals. Because we domesticated our dogs and cats and they both live in our house and they live together, a lot of times people treat them the same way. But we wouldn't take a giraffe and put it in that was a bad example because a giraffe wouldn't fit in my house. But I
No.
wouldn't take another species and just domesticate it and then assume that I should feed it the same way that I feed the other species.
Well, it's because they live in the same house. But what I was saying, I wasn't really saying discounting cats. I was saying that,
Yeah.
you can find some really great herbal books for people, but to take that, like I've spent the last 20 years mapping what we do for people onto dogs and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. I've had some amazing teachers, not any teachers in the animal department. I've had one, Barbara Fagras wrote a great book called Veterinary Herbalism, but that's really a textbook that's very difficult to understand and learn. But she really did a bang up job with that book. And Susan Wynn, she was they were both authors. But my book, actually, I am going to include kitties with any of the herbs that I'm talking about in the chapters.
Okay.
I am going to put kitty safe or non-kitty safe, and then also a kitty dosage.
Oh, good.
Those that can, so that
Yeah.
you can, do something for your kitty if those herbs are safe. And I'm also, even though I'm very proficient in cats, I've worked really hard at that in the last 4 years. But even though I am proficient in cats, I'm actually having a cat herbalist consult with me on the book.
Oh, good, good, good. Yeah. Well, see, that's the sign. That's one of the things that I wish doctors would be better at, consulting with each other. I once spoke with an attorney and she said, it's really weird because attorneys all consult with each other. It's a normal thing. What do you think about this case or this argument or this, that, and the other thing? And she says, but she now works in animal law. And she said that it's really weird how competitive veterinarians are, that they don't actually want to work with each other. They get very arrogant. They just think they're right and they don't want to consult. And that would be a big help if we could get veterinarians to consult with each other and be more
I think
open.
veterinarians are the only one.
Yeah, probably not. Probably
Yeah,
not.
that everyone needs to understand that we have to work together. It takes a village. One thing about herbalism is oh, Rita, so much, right? Well, the information doesn't belong to me. It is moving through me. And I've put some special sauce on it every now and then, right? Because I have a filter of my own. But it's not my information. That information has been here forever. It's been handed down. It's basically the plants are speaking through me, and my mentors are speaking through me. It's a coming together. If we didn't have people that were willing to share this information, it would die. And
Yeah.
that's the most important thing. Like writing, I have 5 books that I'm writing over the next like 6 years, and um, 4 or 5. And it's just so important for me to get this information out there so that generations to come can have that information and learn how to use herbs with dogs effectively and not be frustrated. It takes decades to learn herbal medicine, but what I'm trying to do with the book is bringing things kind of, this is what you can do, this is where you can start, and this is how you can deal with these common canine conditions. But I'm really going to drive home, assimilation and elimination, because that's where it's at.
Yeah.
And nutrition. um
Nutrition. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, because we don't want that information to die. We don't want it to disappear. It's
Nope.
very important. And you look up an herbal, anything herbal on the internet now, it comes from WebMD and different other things. And you got to really know what kind of language to learn. I always tell people, if you are looking up an herb online, don't just put it, don't just put skullcap in there. You want to put skullcap herbal monograph. That's your keys to the kingdom. Then you're going to come up with herbalists writing about these plants. Like on my course site, which is canineherbalism.com, I have a thing. It's a monthly subscription called uh, monthly monographs, herbal monthly monographs. And I deal with one herb each month intensely in those lessons. And they're called monographs. And so that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for information on herbs from WebMD.
Where's the best place for somebody if they're starting to learn out about herbs and they want to get really good herbs? Where do we get those? What's the best way to get those?
Oh, I'll be dealing with that in the book too. But in the United States, there's a place like Mountain Rose Herbs, Pacific Botanicals. I carry herbal medicines. I'm going to be starting to carry quite a few dried herbs as well next year. But there's, what is the name of that? Oh God, it starts with a K. They're a really great farm. Herb Farm is another one. Um, you can find some growers on Etsy. But what I always tell people is look in your region, get a farming book. And if you look for it, there are herbalists everywhere growing really great plant medicine, and plants that you can start growing yourself. I deal with that in the book, growing an herbal garden for your dog. And it's just really important to look in your region first. But my first go-to for herbs, I would definitely say, is Mountain Rose Herbs or Pacific Botanicals, or if I could remember the name of the other one, I would, but I can't, even though I looked it up yesterday. Sorry.
That sounds like me a lot. I have a girl that works for me who took your class through Dogs Naturally magazine, your herbal class. And
Cute herbalism.
she, on herbalism. Yeah. She's so excited to meet you. She's going to be working the event for us and helping out, but she took your class because she grows all her own herbs and everything. And her name's Elizabeth. I can't wait for her to meet you because she just thinks the world of you also, but she grows all of her own herbs in her backyard. And she's just so excited about just learning more and doing it. She's been doing that for a while until she finally decided to get the certification. When did you do that class? It's been a while, huh?
Oh yeah, that was back in 2018.
Is it still available?
Yeah, I've done 2 classes for Dogs Naturally, the acute canine herbalism and also a essential oil training with Dr. Isla Fishburne. Her and I've done that together. So that was a while back, but I'm excited for her. Next spring, I will be coming out with my level 1 canine herbalism course, and that is going to be mind blowing. And and then I'll have a level 2 and a level 3 that will help people if they want to practice.
Oh, good, so, good. Is that going to be just through you?
Yes, that'll just be through me. Yeah.
That's really good. Elizabeth just loves that kind of stuff. So, well, I don't want to keep you past our hour, but thank you so much for coming on and helping us educate, talking about the event. I think people can come there. What's going to be so great about this event is that we're offering a lot of time for Q&A. So we have panels, we have veterinarians that aren't going to be speakers, that are going to be walking around answering questions. There's going to be so much going on there. It's going to be great. It's really, really going to be great. So thank you for coming on and teaching us a little bit about herbalism. And I cannot wait to hear your talk on allergies. It's going to be so good. It's going to be so good. You're
I
such a
can't wait.
blessing always.
Thank you so
Always.
much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. No, we're excited. We're excited. So Lori is behind the scenes. For those of you who don't know, she helps me type everything, do everything. Lori, thank you so much. And then to our listeners, I know you're there. Sometimes you're shy and they don't ask too many questions, but thank you so much for always being on there. I know we threw this one out on you because we had some problems last Wednesday. So hopefully we'll get Rita back on here on a Wednesday when people are more aware that we're on. So, but Rita, again, thank you so much. We couldn't all
Well,
be out here without you helping educate us.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.